folks. How are you? Welcome to Showboat on Location. Mike Lopez here. We're going to do an in-depth interview with Steve Young. Steve, welcome to the set that we have just newly constructed. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and Triax. We heard a lot about you and seen a lot that you've been doing, and it's the local news that we need to be hearing about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of the things that we all talk about, that we don't have a lot of platform, thank God for social media. But as far as a news, to put information, whether it be what we're doing here today or events and whatnot that's happening in ways people, because it's empowerment through information. I believe that 100%. So, Steve, we want you to introduce yourself. You just did. Tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, and your involvement in the city.
Sure. Steve Young, I'm just a black man that's catching hell in the wilderness of North America, and that's my number one. I'm going to stay black for number one, and I will not forget, or you can't take this blackness off. So I'm that. That's me first. Second of all, when it comes to titles and experience, the titles and experience I've had with the 31 North Virginia Avenue, when we actually had to have a first protest, and that was my first interaction with being an activist. The building was a block away from Taj Mahal, your president's casino at the time, Taj Mahal, and basically they wanted to tear the road down and widen it up and relocate us, and mostly Hispanic and blacks in a building that the landlord wasn't taking care of. So we said we weren't going anywhere, and the result was an 8-hour standoff with the SWAT team and everybody, and our former mayor, first black mayor, Mayor Usry, he negotiated terms so the building could be totally fixed up and rehabbed, and we created jobs and everything from that, and it became an affordable building, and it still stands today. Your president went bankrupt before his casinos, left town, and now he took the money.
You mean Donald Trump?
Yes, Donald Trump.
Right. Okay.
I'm going to say your president. I thought you would catch on.
I would say everybody's president, but he's not. He's not my particular president.
Yeah. So that's where it started. The activism went. When you're young, I was only 24 years old. So you try to find yourself, and when you learn your purpose, and you want to use your God-given talent, you can't go against that. So from then, I've been joined the National Action Network and with the Forgotten Youth, and closed the Expressway with Reverend Al Sharpton, a good friend of mine, and now I'm the president of the National Action Network. Also with the Peacekeepers. Peacekeepers is trained in CPR, first aid, the proper way of handling people, and it's an initiative. It's not an organization. So when it comes to keeping the peace in the street, we've been doing that for years, close to 8 years, from its founder, Dennis Muhammad.
So it's been for 8 years since that. So that's interesting. Didn't know it was that long. Back in the going back to the 2012, I guess, 2011.
2011,
So, Steve, here we are. We're on the eve of the weekend.
Before you go there,
Sure.
Go there. There's a couple of more things, and then from having all those organizations and nonprofits and everything, we got together with a lot of black men in the community, and we put together a black agenda. And we, when the first town hall meeting with the now governor, and Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, they had a town hall meeting, wanted to know what community wanted. Well, we were already ready, and we gave them a black agenda, and it came from the Black Men United Coalition. Therefore, everybody can put their titles to the side and use your talents and resources towards building about a better life for our community. And that's what we've been doing since then, and that's what we're most happy about, because it's talking about progress and moving ahead for the future. And then COVID-19 happened and shut everything down, and we were still on telephone conferences building the agenda throughout the state of New Jersey. So with that, when this happened to George Floyd, it brings about a different light of what happened. And to see someone call out their mother's name and say they cannot breathe for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, it kind of hit everyone throughout the world of something different happening. So it brought about the light of now bring the agenda to its forefront. And dealing with all the politicians, we weren't getting too many places. We met with the Attorney General when it comes to excessive force and different things like that, and we met with the powers that be, Lieutenant Governor and her staff, and to no avail. We're not getting anywhere with that. So that's where we're at right now.
And I could understand the frustration with COVID and whatnot, and then the importance of the Black agenda, and also Sheila Oliver being in place to strictly take care of, although she has other duties, I'm sure, Atlantic City. And when you touched a little bit, Steve, about the future, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. We talk about mentoring and talking about children and the kids, our youth here in Atlantic City, in Atlantic County, because I don't like pointing myself in a box. So we're Atlantic County, we're New Jersey, but we have to worry about what happens here, because this is where our youth, and this is where we see the struggle. You know, there's definitely a struggle when the median income's $27,000. The Johnson report, put all that back out, and I'm sure you probably saw that or got a copy. I have a copy in my bag, and some of the stuff in there was very interesting. We're gonna fast forward, to what's going on, and appreciate you introducing yourself to the viewers and the listeners and whatnot. So we have the 4th of July coming up, and the obvious question we're going to talk about, and we'll do this in the first segment, sure, is the upcoming 4th of July weekend, which is one of the biggest in the state and the city. I guess times 5, you could say, with COVID now, because it's so important. To whether it's mom and pops or the big casinos, which we just found out that they won't be doing service in the casinos just yesterday with the governor's news conference with no in-house dining. Protests, again, First Amendment, totally believe and support, the right to assemble, freedom of speech, and that asserts it, that shows it, what's going on and what you got planned for the 4th of July. Talk to us about that. Why the 4th of July? I mean, we'll backdrop a little bit to the 31st May, what happened. Peaceful protest started, didn't end so peacefully. We'll go into it a little bit back and forth. But just tell us why the 4th of July, and then we'll go back.
Well, we got to go back in order to go ahead.
Yep.
And one thing that happened, you remember, when the state took over Atlantic City, when it comes to different collective bargaining with the casinos, owners and the people that works in there and different things like that. Right. When it comes to our rights, they will veto the power of all the council members and the mayor, so they don't have no power. So we are under the Municipal Stabilization Recovery Act, right, which means that the state is actually running Atlantic City, not the government, not the mayor, not the council, but the state. So it's about accountability, access, right, and holding them accountable. So you remember when they was talking about it, I went to testify at the hearing when I was arrested for speaking up on my constitutional right of freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. And the charges was bogus, and it ended up being dismissed. And I challenged it in federal court for them violating the constitutional right of speaking up of how the Black community is being treated and how all this funds and money comes out and don't stay there. And that brings about where we at now. So we tried meeting, we tried the legislators, we tried the administration through the governor. What else do we need to try? And we talked to the Attorney General about the police involved issues. Yeah. So, what else used to do? So we had a protest, March the 31st, to bring light to what happened. March the 31st, to bring light to what happened to George Floyd and others. So since that time, there's been several shootings of unarmed Black men and women all over the country. And then after that, there's been hangings a few weeks ago of hanging of young Black people. So the racism actually exists, but we didn't want to this community didn't want to talk about it.
And that's what we're doing now.
Exactly. And this is what's needed in order to heal. You have to know what people are actually going through, because nobody knows what a Black person go through until you actually live it. And that's very key. So there's several things when it comes to our youth, when it comes to employment. Last year, Here it is when we're talking about a budget for the police department is like 10 times more than the youth budget. So you can barely hire 200 youth to work on a summer job for a few weeks. But yet you can hire more police officers to do what? To beat us up, to beat us down, and to harass? It's about priorities. And if government is going to be doing these things, we must hold them accountable to that.
But as we go, Steve, and when you brought up the police department, and listen, what happened to George Floyd, 100%, I wouldn't even defend. I would have went up and kicked somebody in the back of the head and got him off him. I'm telling you, that's the way I see it. You know, whoever was standing around, whether you're a fellow officer or a pedestrian, some of them, they would have probably got in trouble. But when we talk about Atlantic City Police Department, and when I moved full-time here, let's say 12 years ago or so, you know, Atlantic County resident, and go to all the meetings, council meetings, CRDA meetings, association meetings, yada, yada, yada. And not just there to hang out, whatever, just to talk, and we do, and you learn, and you meet, and you network, and you hear the concerns. There used to be lines of people complaints with the police department, you know, how they got settled and whatnot. I don't see that now. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but so my point in bringing that up is, I don't like being painted with a broad brush. You know, when I say Mike Lopez or my nationality or anything. I know, and I'm sure you do, some brothers and sisters that are police or fire or whatever they may be. We can't say, I can't say, that 100% of the people are bad.
Well, what we can say, the numbers don't lie. And we have to admit, nationwide, throughout the world, especially here, in the United States, majority of black young men is being killed unarmed by white police officers in a blue uniform that taxpayers pay for. We got, right here in Atlantic City, we have so much excessive force that it took the media to come out in the community and get the information and do excessive force report. And they came out with what we knew all the time in our black community. And that's why you saw us not coming back out. Because if we knew all the time that you have all these excessive forces, you have over $3 million and more worth of settlements, and nothing happened to a police officer, so what's the purpose of keep coming back to a council meeting over and over again to not be heard? So what was the purpose of it? So it was like, we wasting our time, keep telling them, and we put it on record, Now the press have manifested what we've been saying all the time. Now what? And those officers got promotions. Some of them retired and got pensions. But look what happened to the taxpayers. So we're not only talking about black people now, we're talking about property owners as well as some of these casinos. They're paying for some of these police officers the settlements. So therefore, we got something in common here that we need to talk about. Why does this continue to happen if after it's been manifested with the numbers that actually exist?
Right, and you're on the police advisory board the past year or so. I guess it's a 2-year term.
Yes.
I'm not sure. And to my point and your point, do you see? I mean, do you get numbers? I don't know what the intel is that you guys get.
The intel is definitely on the police department. Atlantic City Police Department website.
Right. Okay.
It's on the Attorney General website because we've told them to make it mandatory to be transparent. So the numbers are there, but sometimes who's counting the numbers? It's about who's actually transmitting the information out. And we don't have a benefit to that, and we don't have subpoena powers to get certain information. There's been videos that we requested from being in the Community Advisory Board we couldn't even get about what happened to a Hispanic person when ICE came in the community, and we asked for the video from the police officers, and we haven't even got it today. So there's issues that goes on, and when you're sitting and doing a public servant of being on a Community Advisory Board, that means I know firsthand the knowledge of what's going on. When I'm on the planning board, I know firsthand the knowledge of what's going on. So I know what they're planning, and I know what plans that don't exist for us as black people. So it's very important that we didn't have an agenda as black people in our community for years. Now we have one, and it's about implementation at this time.
And I love the way you explained it and put it out, and we'll hopefully meet after this show, this segment that we're doing down the road, and talk more about that and what it actually implements as far as the plan and the advisory board. Let's go back and stay, like you said, we went to the 31st. I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, let's go window shopping. Let's go, tell me, was it a double meeting? I'm sure you've answered this dozens of times, but we just need to straighten that out here. I was there, again, peaceful, out front of the public safety building, to walk, and I guess I'm going to say after about 4 o'clock, 3:30, somewhere around there, is when I peeled off somewhere around Pacific Avenue, maybe by the Carnegie Center. And then it just, I don't know how much longer it went, but they say, some of the words that would say they were caught on video. And, I've heard a couple of your interviews and whatnot. So
let me say this. It's amazing that's why we don't control the media. We don't have no black press to talk about and go in our community to do actual facts. And I want to thank TRIAX today to have the opportunity to talk about what really happens in our community. And one thing about it, it's about character assassination. We understand that. Well, we told everybody from the beginning, the first thing we said do, have a moment of silence to know what George Floyd went through. And if you can lay down, and put your hands behind your back like you was handcuffed for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And just imagine saying, Mama, I can't breathe. And there's still no let up off your neck. We started that. And black, white, everybody that was out there did that and felt it. Then we stood up and we talked about how we're going to go about moving forward. And one thing we mentioned, there's going to be a peaceful protest.
I heard that.
We said anybody, agitators out here that think they're going to do something wrong, we have some brothers that will take care of you. That's strictly what I said. Then I basically said, all you're doing right now, we're going to walk through this community and do window shopping. Window shopping means you walk through and you come another day and you buy something. It don't mean loitering. We never met, and we never, out of all the 107 protests in Atlantic City, has been peaceful. And why would they concentrate on the negativity more than the positive? That's why it's very important to July the 4th, to show the world and all them naysayers and haters, to let them know that the negativity will not take advantage of the good in the protest. Because Martin Luther King had to show that in Alabama and when he had protests. When it got out of hand, he had to go back and say, no, this is the way you do it, and we can do it as a peaceful matter because we are peaceful people. And we have showed that over and over again, and we showed it the next week when we came out there with Black Lives Matter. And we showed them, and the young people were very orderly, and guess what happened? After it was over with, and see, some people have to take responsibility as leaders. You say you're a leader, you have to take responsibility. Absolutely. We had ministers out there, faith-based members. We had politicians out there. We told them, your role is to lead and control the crowd and network with us if you see somebody get out of hand so we can work together to deal with it. So the agitators knew better. So when we finished the rally on June, when we did the second one, we walked down Atlantic Avenue. We were in the back, in the rear, most of us. Mm-hmm. So as we got to City Hall where we started, don't you know another group has started agitating what we told them not to do and started stir up like it was before? And what do we do as leaders? We've seen politicians out there in the audience, ministers, police officers didn't do nothing, just stood there and wouldn't be responsible. We stood up there, about 8 of us, on that stage and said, didn't we tell you it was over and we're not going to have this issue in Atlantic City and you're not going to do it on our watch? And we told them to go home. And if you have a problem with going home, we got some people over here on the side of the stage that will talk to you and will put you on the bus to go.
Right.
I mean, but it's about responsibility and leadership.
Sure is. Yep.
Now, we can't be everywhere all the time, but if we're present, and anybody that calls themselves a leader that's present, it's a certain responsibility that you need to take as a leader, and don't blame it on the people that's been keeping it peaceful.
And to your point, and I was at the second one, at part of it, to the end of it. But again, black, white, Hispanic, Bangladesh, Pakistani, Vietnamese, all different types of folks. You have to understand that they did, when they said, well, you probably shouldn't have said, I mean, even some of the leaders here, let's go window shopping, because it could be, I mean, what you're saying, I understand, but it could be misconstrued. We want to give out direct messages. And I'm not saying what happens 3 hours later is your fault or anyone's fault. I'm not saying that by any stretch. So that's all they were saying. And I wanted your answer, and you gave it, and that's it. So as we move forward, Steve, 4th of July, and again, some things were said. Again, the right to assemble. I totally, I'll be there in support. Although just covering it also too, but in support. Again, there's no question what went on is 100% wrong, and I think actually, there's none to it. You were on a radio show a couple days ago. We had talked last week and whatnot, and then you went on, and again, telling about the protest, the date. Let's do this. This is what it's for. And again, when words come out, people take them certain ways. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Hispanic. Again, I'll go through the whole list.
Well,
I'm just asking you to explain, shut the city down to us. That's all.
Certain people don't understand the cultural knowledge and words that we use from the street. They don't understand it.
Right.
And to try to teach them that, they have to go back to school. That's why the black curriculum into the education of every school system in the state of New Jersey needs to be checked. As far as the teachers learning it, the staff learning about black history, and definitely the students. Not the white history, not about Christopher Columbus and George Washington, not only about Malcolm X, and not only about Martin Luther King, but there's other history of slavery we have been lied to as a people for over 400-something years. So that's the reality check that you see happening all over the country right now. Black folks starting to see that, wow, we've been lied to and we've been cheated. So we're getting a cultural check too as black people. And seeing George Floyd being hung by someone's knee on their neck for that long, our children actually see, and our grandchildren actually seeing a modern day lynching for the world can see. And guess what? They wouldn't even want to arrest them. So when you see that type of thing, because a lot of young people, they say, well, if we was back there in the 60s, man, them dogs and all that, man, we couldn't have took all that when them beatings that Martin Luther King had. But guess what? They live in it today. And they're saying, we're not going to stand it. We're not going to do what our forefathers. No more business as usual, just a new day, and we're not going to have it. Right.
So tell me what shut the city down means. I mean, you're talking to me. I have to ask it, and we want to let them know what you're meaning.
Well, we say show up or shut up.
That's right.
And we said that the first time. Just like you came out to see for yourself, you didn't have to shut up because you was out there being seen. Everybody needs to do their part of what their God-given talent is. This country was built and fought from revolution to revolution to get every state that it has through violence, through revolution. And we have been fighting just to have the right to vote in this country for over 400 since the 60s. And every time it changes the rule and disenfranchise us as black people.
But you're not saying violence is the way to go. No.
If for all these years, let me ask you a question. For all these years, we've showed the light that you can go and talk to your legislators. You can go to the hearings in Trenton, tell them how you feel. Write it out, give it to them. Challenge the government, because you're just different forms of government. You got your administrative, which has to do with your governor, will have to do with your mayors, and so forth. And then you got your legislative, which is your council people and your senators and assembly.
Right.
And then you have your judicial. So it's supposed to be checks and balances. But when we don't see no checks and balances as black people, we're saying the system don't work for us. So are you saying we're still 3/5 of a human being? I think it spells for itself about the incarceration rate and how many of us are in the jail system that they're making a profit off. Private industries and businesses. Now, they're starting to change, but look what it had to take.
Cityism and
Absolutely. But, I mean, they had to legalize marijuana so they can make some money.
And we're going to talk about that.
In order
maybe
to
the next
release some
segment.
of us.
Right.
That was mistreated. And some of them officers are still on the force. They put drugs on some people. They shot some people, and some of those cases need to be reopened
Well,
because they were closed too soon.
I see where there's legislation being written for the past 20 years, if anyone was brought up on charges with in the police, and to be public and whatnot. So I think that's a road to go in the right direction there. And again, what happened in the past is terrible, but we need to move forward. And the 4th of July is a protest coming up at 1 p.m. Where do you stand again? And again, what happened the 31st and what's happened around the country? Me, I don't condone violence. I've seen violence all my life. You know, my mother and father, both from Puerto Rico, father, 3rd grade education, mother, high school education, raised in Philly for some time, and then we moved to Atlantic County. Seen racism, seen violence, had to go through it. But what I've learned, and it's something that needs to be learned, you know, whether I'm 55 or 25 or 20, Steve, is that I don't see where violence, and listen, we're men. We're men who, we work with our hands, we work with our feet and our bodies. But when this is coming to a real head, and I believe there's a lot of attention, and it needs to be on George Floyd, and it needs to be on the brutality of what happened. And for anybody to say, oh, well, that cop made us look, or me look bad, it's not about looking bad. It's bad.
Bad is bad.
It's bad. So my going on now is just like, how do you feel about the looting and that? And again, some of your words get taken a different way, and I just want the clarity.
You know, as a black man,
right,
and living in our communities, we see violence every day.
Right.
We see oppression every day. And when you see that every day, and the system is part of what's been keeping you and oppressing you to keep down by changing the rules and by miseducation of our children and our youth and even our family members, then it brings about, what else can I do for freedom? For freedom. Mm-hmm. I've actually lived it, been through it. So we put together as a Black Men United Coalition, which consists of nonprofits, business people. It's not just Steve Young sitting here. This ain't about Steve Young. Let me make it very plain. It's about solutions driven by education, health, criminal justice, wealth, youth, housing, and the poverty. If we don't deal with those issues, and we have written and have gave it to the people that can make a difference, so there won't have to be the thought of any violence, then why aren't they listening and doing their part with us to solve the issue? That's the question that needs to be asked. And if they say Black Lives Matter, let us know how it matters to you.
Right. And so well put. And that's a very good list of what you just read off, and it needs to be. But and I think a strong one in that list is education. Absolutely. We need our, they're spending, I don't know, 27, 28,000. Don't ask me what, again, and I don't say that being smart. I'm not there to divert the dollars. But also with education and the mentions you just did, is our homes. Whether it's a single mom, double home parents, whatever, we need to teach. We need to train our parents, grown-ups like myself, yourself, your age, or whatever it may be. We have to start it at home. And it's unfortunate that some may work 2 or 3 jobs, that they don't have a grandmom there or somebody or a dad there, because it's us as men who have to mentor, Steve.
But part of the home is a community.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what a lot of people get it mixed up. Every child, most of the time,
have to be responsible,
has to go in the community.
Right.
When you go in the community, you're going outside your home. One day, while you on this earth, you go into the community itself.
Right.
The world is just that big. When you do that, how do you react? Have you been trained in the house how to do that? No. Men sharpen men, iron sharpen iron.
That's right.
We cannot do this by ourselves. Me, myself, I have to have the tone with myself in order to understand what my brother is going through. And then we sharpen each other to move our community forward, whether you male and female. And that's where the solutions rely in, because we hear too many times, oh, it's at home, it's at home, it's at home. The community is the home as well. And we must take responsibility as that, as business people, as leaders, faith-based, and so forth. We have to take responsibility that driving in the home leads to the community. You can't do one without the other.
And again, I agree with that. But I say, again, whether it's white, black, Hispanic, whatever, we have to do that as a community, as a whole community, and to raise our children up, because when they go to school, they're going to school with everyone. And I'm not saying that you're not saying that. I've watched a couple back in the day of Iman Amin. And yourself, and I think you probably about a year ago, it was a really good barbershop discussions or conversations, and that's what you guys were talking about, and it was just so strong, and I was like, this needs to be shown to they should bring it to AC High and to school, because what you were talking about, and we're gonna transition into this, is mentorship. You were talking about, and correct me if I was wrong, something about grabbing 10 guys, 10 men, and grabbing 10 children, and we go from there, and what it's like to be responsible work and whatnot, and all that stuff that that we should learn, and unfortunately not all of us do at times. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Whether it's work or whatnot. Talk to us about that. Sure. Where you are with that in your group and the leadership.
We have networked with part of the coalition with different nonprofit, and some of them not even nonprofit, that's actually doing these works. But some of them don't have the resources to expand it to the level to help the community out and these young people out more. So why not network with the people that have the resources, with the people that have the means to solve the problem? And that's been the issue for a long, long time. An example, we were talking about a studio right here in Atlantic City. That's on our agenda. Yep. You have Comcast and the school and the city playing politics with our media that could be promoting Atlantic City every day.
Every day.
But if we go there to use it, we got to go through the red tape and the bureaucracy just to show the knowledge of what we're going through as a community, when one of the things we can do immediately, and we requesting in our agenda with education, no one gets a pass. No one. From healthcare, the hospitals, from businesses, from education, we have solutions about it, but you got to listen and be part of the agenda to get it done. That's all we're asking. And don't you know they have the homicide curriculum that's mandated throughout the state of New Jersey to learn about the slave trade and the homicide? And here it is. How many of do we actually think sometime our teachers are going to actually teach that to our children if they white and don't live here? And our children go for years without knowing the history and the culture of themselves. And when they find out they've been lied and learned somebody else's history, that's a wake-up call. That's a shocker in your mind. And that's what's happening. But what about the solution to it? The solution is that if it's mandatory, someone needs to make sure it's transparent and it's being adhered to. Education. All these teachers, the staff and the teachers that live here, I tell you right now, you probably got 10% of the people out of the whole Board of Education, which increases our taxes for everybody here, that live here in the city. You know what I mean? They live here in this city. So, I mean, you mean to tell me they don't want to live here, but they want our money and take it out? Same thing when it comes to casino workers. You mean to tell me out of 20,000 employees in the casino, let's say around 20,000, in the casino industry alone, how many do you think actually live here?
I'd say 25%. That's just a guess.
And how many of you think are black and live here?
I wouldn't, I'd be
But the
lying.
point of it is, the dollar, if it don't circulate here into home ownership and to buying, even having lunch at some of our businesses here to sustain them, what are you doing? And that's just the casino industry. What about the teachers?
Right. No, and I agree. And it's fun. This is not something I was going to talk about, but when you bring that up with the casino workers and whatnot, I remember when they made the parking lot out there on the expressway. I thought that was probably one of the worst things, because folks would at least get your check and maybe you're eat something, maybe you're hang out or buy something for your lady or your man, or have your family come up. So now they're jumping in, but that was a long time ago. So we're going to wrap it up here a little bit. We're ending with mentorship. There's two things when you said, you hit me with a buzzword, and with the 4th of July, Steve, is there a permit that's needed for that, to assemble?
The permit is your constitution. It says you have freedom of assembly and speech. Now, if you want to change your constitution to say you have to get a permit, then there's a lot of people. We have to rebuild the country.
Right. So that
answers that.
Right. And it's going to go on the 4th of July, 1 p.m., and I'm going to give you the final word, and we're going to revisit this post 4th of July and maybe have these discussions, because this is what I truly believe, is that nothing gets done, whether it's in our home, whether it's sitting right here in the showboat, in court, legislation, or with Black Lives Matter and the civil unjust and the feelings that people feel, that they're validated because they're yours, without communication. So I appreciate what we're doing, because we have to communicate, but the next step of that I call, living it out. We can all have good intentions. Intentional living is what I like to call it. We can all, I want to lose weight. I want to be a good guy. I want to be good to my wife or my daughter, my kid, or my neighbor. It's good intentions, but you know what intentions are? Nothing.
Thank you.
They're nothing. They're nice, but it's action. Right. And that's that next step, and that's what we're taking, and I hope to continue to move forward with that. I'm going to give you the last word about the 4th and whatever you like there, Steve.
Basically, we're saying show up or shut up. Come out and support yourself towards the economic freedom and the injustice, and we need to talk about the systemic justice and racial things that goes on in our community. And in order to solve that, like you said, we have to talk about it. But also after we talk about it, we got to take action and make it real. That's what's different than other protests we're talking about today. We have an agenda now, a plan to do something for ourselves. But some things and some people are in the way. So we have to expose that to get to the decision makers, to have a decision to work with us. Let's do a community benefits agreement that says you're going to work with the community. You don't always have to work with the government and the politicians. You can work with the community. And we're saying at the Black Men United Coalition, we want to talk about those issues, about doing a community benefits agreement, to deal with the issues of talking about housing, education, health, criminal justice, and our youth, and the poverty. Because it's a shame when we leave here, we walk down the street, we're going to see a lot of homeless people, and a lot of them are young. But yet, 2 blocks away, they're talking about opening $1 billion casino. And I'm going to conclude with this. When it comes to our health, we want everybody to just think about our health. If they say COVID-19, the majority of Black people was dying from this, and we have a lot of Black people in our community, and you keep it open and keep your beaches open for during this whole COVID-19, close the faith-based, leave the liquor stores open, right? And then you want to open the community to the whole world to come in our city, and they haven't been checked for COVID-19? And then they're going to leave with money in their pockets, and the tax revenue goes out of here. The money that they probably win going to go out of here. The hotel tax, when they stay in the rooms, is going to go out of here. Every restaurant they eat in, that tax is going to go out of here. We're going to be left with probably a lot of the COVID-19 that don't have a virus yet. So you're saying you're doing a genocide to our community, and we're not supposed to say shut it down? We need to think about that. As a human being, don't we have the right to breathe and say, get that knee off our neck? And the governor has a responsibility to do that, and the attorney general as well. And they need to be talking about sitting down with us before July the 4th.
And that's hopefully that'll happen. Hopefully, again, that it'll be peaceful, that the city doesn't get shut down. And I say this not for businesses, but although they're included, big and small, I say it also for the residents, for families that have the little stores, Sling and Wings, Kelsey's, Tony Baloney's. You know, I mentioned giving a few shout outs there, Tony's, Baltimore, you know, because these folks are going to come in to eat something, to hang out, and they can't sit there, but they can hang out. Will the city be shut down?
Yes, and we've spoken to some of those businesses, the local businesses, and what we can say to them, to the rest that haven't heard, you know, that's why we want to bring light to all that money that leaves here to stay here. If some of those casino owners, those casino workers, and some of those teachers and educators, if they live here, you won't have to worry about nobody coming in to go to your place. They'll be here already.
But you didn't
That's what we're talking about solutions.
Will it be shut down?
Yes, we will be shutting down, and I'm going to say it again, 110%
Right.
on July the 4th. Yes.
So Steve, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you coming out, and like I said, you're very candid. You're straight to the point. I'd love to continue this dialogue, the communication with us, you know, and we, like I said, gone back and forth a couple times, and we've known each other and seen each other at different meetings, and I was there in Trenton, and when the takeover was not. But again, I want to thank you, and hopefully it's a peaceful and everything gets done the proper way, and the focus is on what the focus is. That's what I'm saying.
If we have anything to do with it, it's definitely going to be peaceful, and we would like to invite you out to the community.
I'll be there.
You know, as soon as possible, so you can see the light of what we've been discussing here today, of how black lives should matter, and how does it matter to you.
And I agree with you. I do a lot of work we'll end it with this, with the Covenant House, the young men and women, Salvation Army, and I'm out there.
Yeah,
but I will definitely. I know.
Well,
I'm
speaking to your audience, because
that's where
you got a lot of people that's looking
Right.
and listening. They just press like and stay in the house and comment. But here it is when
Right.
it comes to action. You
and
will
that's
show
the way
up
I
or
was
shut
gonna,
up.
And that's the way I was going to end it. That we will invite people out and take that walk, like you said.
Thank
and
you.
I've heard you in certain places. Again, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you like and watch Tri-X 57, also the Atlantic City Media Group, Live, Work, Play, AC. It's not just about having fun. We talk about real discussions here, and we're going to continue to have this dialogue, and hopefully it grows and we get those mentors, and stuff just starts, because it's a gem in which we live.
Yes.
It could be. It really could be. Steve, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Good night, folks. Be well.